Hello, welcome back to David's Tip of the Week. This week we're going to take a look at calculating the difference between dates in Excel. We're going to calculate the difference in months, years, and days. So before we get into this, we have to understand how Excel works with dates. So Excel believes that the beginning of time starts on 1/1/1900. It assigns this date with a number value of 1. And every sequential date after that, it assigns a different number. So 1/1/1900 is 1, 1/2/1900 is 2, and so on. Unfortunately, what this means is that if we want to calculate any dates prior to 1/1/1900, Excel is not going to recognize that as a date, and unfortunately it will not let us calculate. We'll have to figure out different ways to do that. But I'm judging that the majority of people probably won't need to calculate dates that far back, and this will work the majority of the time for us. So let's say we wanted to calculate the difference between 1/1/2000 and 11/17/2014. We would use the Datedif function. So we'll start typing in equals date, and as I start here, I'll point out that when we normally start typing in a function, you're probably used to seeing here the suggested function come up. Now this doesn't show up because this function, this Datedif, is actually not a Microsoft function. This comes from Lotus 123, and that was a program that was a competitor of Excel's around the time when they were trying to vie for who would be the spreadsheet king. So because it's not really their function, they can't document it and give you the tips and the syntax for it. But it works nonetheless. So here is the syntax for Datedif. So we type Datedif with our parentheses, and then we want the start date. So that's sequentially the first date, so 1/1/2000, comma. Then we want the end date, that's 11/17/2014. And then we want the interval of time that we're measuring. It's very important that we put this interval in quotations for the function to properly calculate. So we want the difference in years, so we do quotations and a Y, and you'll see that there's 14 years between those two dates. If we want to do the same thing in months, we'll just change this to an M, and there's 178 months between those two dates. And if we want to see the same thing in days, we change this to a D, and you'll see that there is 5,434 days between 1/1/2000 and 11/17/2014. Another fun fact about dates in Excel is that Excel has a error that was built in that's carryover from Lotus, and that's the date of 2/29/1900. So this particular date doesn't actually exist, but Excel uses it to calculate because it was carried over. So any date that you're using that is before 2/29/1900 will actually incorrectly add an extra day to the calculation. So you'll have to ensure that if you're working with dates back in the past that far, that you recognize that. Again, the majority of times I'm willing to bet that you're not using dates that far back, so you won't have to, but it's an interesting fact that they brought that error forward. Alright, so hopefully you've learned a little bit about how to calculate the difference between dates, and this will help you to do that a little bit easier than some of the other methods you may have been using. Thanks for watching.